Good evening, and you're very welcome to another episode of the League of Ireland Women's podcast here on finalwhistle.ie with myself, Breifne, Earley, and as always, Aaron Clarke joins me for all things women's football across the country. We're going to be talking about the international games against the USA on Friday and Sunday. Of course, the early hours of Friday morning, late Thursday night. 2 a.m. I think is the kickoff time there, and then an 8 o'clock Irish time kickoff on Sunday evening against the USA. But we're going to be talking all things Women's Premier Division in the League of Ireland. Before that, some big games, some last-minute goals, some big deciders down, particularly in Daily. We're going to be talking about Katie Lawlee's wonder strike, probably my goal of the weekend. But we've had a couple of deciders. We actually had a bit of a debate before the show, Aaron, about which games we thought, or which goals we thought were the most impressive this week. Lauren Kelly with a decent one for Wexford as well, but a couple of others caught your eye.
Yeah, there was. I thought that Kate Thompson's goal for me was a really nice finish. I thought the Shell's second goal as well. The ball from Rebecca Devereux over the top for Kate Mooney was lovely. I think you're gonna get this just because of the fact that your text messaged me on Saturday. You're gonna get the Katie Lawlee goal, and we'll talk about that a little bit as the show goes on. But
yeah,
this weekend
I've proven that I rarely know what I'm talking about, but I think I nailed that.
So this is twice you've done this with Treaty United this year. You've done it at the start of the year when you text me about Bella Faccini.
Yeah.
And then you text me about Katie Lawlee saying, and the funny thing is I hadn't even read your message. I was watching the game, hadn't even read your message at that stage. And literally when I look up my phone a minute or two later to read your message.
You missed nothing. I literally texted you 60 seconds before she struck.
I mean, I was watching the game and I had picked up my phone and you're looking at the game just like, wow.
For those who haven't seen much, I literally said something along the lines of, the more I see a Katie Lawlee, the more I'm impressed by her. And then literally 10 seconds later, 20 seconds later, the ball's in the back of the net.
Just replied reloaded with an explain just because I was in shock.
Yeah, I did clip the whole conversation and Aaron had to apologize for the profanity, but it was completely understandable. What a goal, what a game. But there's some really good games. Athlone beat Peas 3-0 at the weekend, but honestly, it could have gone either way. Like, if you look back at the highlights and you said it was 3-0 game and you didn't see the strikes, you could probably have said, well, it's 50-50. It could have gone either way. But so Peamount be very unlucky or feel very hard done by in that particular game. It was a cracking game to watch. Maybe not so much to listen to. Are we going to get ourselves in trouble there? I like.
No, I'm not saying anything.
You didn't watch it. You turned it off, but I watched it. All I'd say is the sooner we have both Chloe Singleton and Kerry-Ann Brown back on the field of play, it's better for everybody involved in the league. I think I'd much rather watch them play than listen to them talk about playing. It was a tough.
I actually sat back and I watched a lot of it on Sunday. On Sunday afternoon, and like you're sort of thinking in these sort of games, like it's great to see players involved. But the only thing about it is, right, and yes, their commentary wasn't. Some people won't have liked it. Okay,
I'd love to see
the big thing about for me is it's that players actually willing to get involved and have an opportunity of it.
In their defense, I will say I would pay good money to listen to them while they're playing. Like, if you mic'd up either of those two players during a game and we're listening to them through the game, absolutely hilarious. We see that
with other female sports, and it's actually brilliant when you watch back the clips and you see it because they have a camera following them and they're sort of every movement. It's I'd love to see that, but hopefully it won't be too long before we see Chloe Singleton back in the pitch. I think Kerry-Ann Brown's probably going to be a little bit longer, but listen. They had the microphone. They enjoyed it. That's the big thing. The girls enjoyed it.
They had great fun, and I'll be honest. I was in giggles most of the time listening to them because they were box office. But I'm a bit of a fan of kind of.
You're a traditionalist.
Yes, that's the best way to put it. I'm a traditionalist when it comes to commentary, but I did actually really enjoy them. If there were an alternative commentary option where you could listen to them,
I'd listen to that instead.
Okay. I did get in and out of it. But anyway, listen, this is a football commentary discussion rather than two mates having a laugh. But I did enjoy some of their analysis of the game at the same time. But let's talk about that game first, seeing as it's the one we're chatting about. Athlone, top of the table, Peamount have been struggling. But it was a very even game. Athlone probably just a little bit more clinical than Peamount have been. Maybe that's the difference between the two sides this season.
That is the big difference between the sides. Is Athlone can take that half a chance, where Peamount now maybe don't necessarily take them sort of chances compared to what they used to take. Like we were talking even before we went on air, and you're right in what you said to me. In a game gone by, in years gone by, Peamount of old probably would have won that game, and probably would have won it, would have taken the chances, and would have sort of scuffed out Athlone. But it's a difference now. The big thing when you look at Athlone, it's riding high in confidence, riding high in form. Like Athlone have now scored 28 league goals in 10 games. Like you compare that to Peamount. Peamount have only scored 11 goals in 9 games. And that's why Peamount aren't getting results. That's why they're 4 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw, because they're not scoring goals. And it's their Achilles heel. Yes, they've conceded 10 goals. 10 goals is not a lot in them sort of games. Like you look at it, especially of the top teams, Shells have conceded 8.
Yep.
That there or thereabouts. It's just they can't put the ball in the net at the minute.
Yeah, well, in context, DLR, who by everyone's assumption are having a terrible year, they've scored 10. Peamount have only got 11. It's
11.
And Bows and Cork, who again you wouldn't be screaming about how well they're doing this year. They've got 12 and 14. So Cork are like one of the worst scorers in the not Cork, sorry, Peamount, one of the worst scorers in the division. It's not a surprise then, given where they are 7th place as a result of that.
No, absolutely not. And like we've said on this show, and I've said it multiple times, in order for Peamount to get results in games, they need their top players every single game. Where we can see the likes of an Athlone can afford to be missing 1 or 2. Peamount can't afford to be missing them sort of players, and Peamount have to be taking every chance that they get. And like Athlone has sort of been a bit of a difficult place for them to come. Like you take out the Bows game that was called off. Like that's, if you include the All Ireland Cup, that's 3 games in a row for Peamount, where they've only scored 1 goal in them 3 games. They've drawn 2, lost 1 in between the All Ireland Cup and the league. So like they're not scoring goals. Like even if you go back to the league table and the fact that they've scored 11 goals, they scored, what did they score? They scored 4 against Treaty, and they scored 3 against DLR. That's 2 games where they've scored 7 goals. The rest of their games they've only scored 4 goals. Which is not a lot at all.
They do have 2 games less played than Treaty, for argument's sake, but the point still stands. In the actual game itself, Athlone, it was a bit of a mixed match from 2 penalties for Athlone. 1 missed, 1 scored. Let's talk about the missed one first, because it came from something fairly innocuous. A ball came in. Amanda Budden made a fairly routine save. It's coming out challenged maybe by the Athlone player, and then all of a sudden, the game I was watching cut to highlights, cut to a replay, and we come back and there's been a yellow card and a penalty. The girls did say on the commentary that there was some sort of a lash out from, they implied it was a kick, but it just didn't seem to be what happened to me when I was looking at it, even the little fragment.
Yeah, I went back even just there trying to find it on LOI TV myself.
They had cut away, unfortunately. It doesn't show it, but
it's one of them that's, without the full context of it, you only really go with what the commentators are saying. In terms of the penalty itself, where do you rank that? It's probably right up there with the worst penalty of the season.
Under 12 schoolgirl, I'd be disappointed if they hit it that poorly. I think it's bizarre that it was. I'm not quite sure what she was going for, whether she miskicked it or whether she just hoped that Amanda Budden was going to dive one direction and it would just trickle down the middle. But it was a poor effort,
especially being somebody who's scored 10 league goals already this season. It's a really, really bad penalty. But the thing I'd say to you is, we've seen a bit of that this season, of some really, really poor penalties. We've seen some great penalty saves from goalkeepers. We've also seen some really, really poor penalties this season in the league. And like it's one of these that I think women's football and penalties probably still has a bit of a way to go. You get some of them where you get absolute pearlers of a penalty, and then you get what we seen on Saturday, and there was no surprise later on in the game that Roisin Malloy took the second penalty.
Well, was there? Because to be fair to Kelly Brady, like she missed a penalty, it was terrible. She did go on to score 2 goals in that game. And if I'm 2-0 up in the closing stages of a game, last 10 minutes of a game, I've got to, even if I've missed one, I probably want that hat trick.
Yeah. And then but again, you look back to same situation with Shells against Waterford when they played down the RSC. Noelle Murray misses the first penalty. She doesn't take the second one, takes the third one, and misses again. Like, it'd be interesting to know, and you'll only know by speaking to Roisin or speaking to Kelly, whose decision it was for Roisin to take that penalty. But I agree with you in the sense of you're 2-0 up, going for a hat-trick. It's the sort of thing where you'd want to see the player taking that penalty, but it could be just unselfishness.
Well, it could also be that there's 2 or 3 of them and they share it, and it's a case of, well, if you miss, it's me until I miss, and then it goes back to you. Or
I'll give you the best one ever. Alex Kavanagh and Jesse Stapleton for a penalty for Shelbourne when Jesse's last season. They couldn't decide who was going to take it. How did they pick who took the penalty?
Rock, paper, scissors.
They done rock, paper, scissors on the pitch to pick who took the penalty. And if memory serves me right, I think the penalty was missed.
Well, that never ends well for whoever misses the penalty. It's all well and good if you insist on it and stick it in the back of the net. Nobody cares. But if you miss it, then it's just grief for weeks. We did talk. Brown did get on the score sheet twice, either side of halftime, in the build up to halftime, and then about on the hour mark. Should be happy enough with her performance overall, despite the penalty.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you look at the fact that their game last week was called off as well. So it's been a couple of weeks since they've had a game. Yeah, you'll be happy. 2 goals against a side who still have a high caliber in terms of their pedigree in the league. Yeah, absolutely. Kelly Brady will definitely have to be happy.
Yeah. Let's move on to the other title challengers at the moment. That's Shells. They travelled to the showgrounds. What to say about this game, because this was, you're going in with one team on form, 9 wins out of 10. Sligo Rovers been struggling, albeit with a little bit of an uptake in recent weeks, but overall 8 defeats and 11 in the league. There only ever was going to be one winner, but I was quite impressed with Sligo at times during this game. They did get on the score sheet, 3-1 win. The highlights are a little bit clipped because I did see it live and there's a bit of confusion over on the sideline. Shells thought the ball had gone out. Sligo hadn't. They played on, Shells didn't, and they created an opportunity, which, to be fair, was absolutely nailed.
It was great. It was a great run from Áine McDonald.
Great vision from Myrne Devaney as well to find her. But Shells, Kate Mooney in particular, hat-trick for her. Although, to be fair to Sligo again, Bonnie McKiernan will be disappointed not to have kept the ball out for the penalty. She got really close to it. And I suppose Mooney can be a little bit thankful that the ball ended up in the back of the net there. But all in all, solid performance from Shells.
I said to you even before we started about the penalty, was it a soft penalty or is it just a bit of a clumsy tackle? Like, if you're from Sligo, you have Shells 20 minutes, you're 0-0, you're well in the game. You concede that goal and then you concede again, 6 minutes later. Sligo on the back foot, Shells can sort of do what they want. I think it was a comfortable enough performance from Shells. My only thing when it comes to Sligo Rovers is they create chances. They just can't take them. And, even to see them creating some chances against Shells where they have opportunities, they just can't seem to take them chances. And I think that's the sort of difference between an experienced player in that sort of realm of the park and an inexperienced player, or having the odd experienced player in that sort of team. Like, they are creating chances. And I think that's the positive side from a Sligo viewpoint, is they are creating chances. The goal is scored. Yes, it was a lovely goal as well. But if they could take some of them chances, they'd sort of be putting Shells under a little bit more pressure, making Shells having to work a little bit more. The one thing I will say, and I took note of this, was that I thought Mackenzie Anthony missed I don't even want to say it was a great save from Bonnie McKiernan, because I thought it was a really poor strike.
You're talking about the situation where she was one-on-one.
One-on-one with goal. I thought it was a poor strike.
It wasn't a great strike, but I don't think I'd take it away from Bonnie McKiernan.
It was a good save from McKiernan, but I think Mackenzie Anthony, she goes either side of her, she scores.
Yeah,
and, like, McKiernan done very well to stand up tall. That was one thing that I did take. I thought the ball for the second goal from young Rebecca Devereux was very good into Kate Mooney. But for me, Sligo probably will be a little bit disappointed the fact that they had created chances in this game. And for Shells will be definitely happy, considering they didn't play the game against Athlone last week. It's one of these the Shells I feel a bit sorry for. Shells have had a third time, obviously, of late, with what's gone on with Avian Clancy, and then what's gone on with Noelle Murray as well. And then you add that, you compound that into sort of the game they've no game last week when they're ready to go. And it's been a difficult sort of 3-4 weeks for Shelbourne. And I think it was a positive just to get the result. Good to see Áine Clancy on the bench as well for Shelbourne in that game. Good to see that she was there, sort of, and she come on as well. I think that was a positive as well.
I think we're also seeing, maybe it was because of the air being close to Donegal, but I thought Roman McLaughlin had a fabulous game. She played in 70 minutes, and I just thought she was in the heart of everything that Shells did well for the time she was on the pitch. I thought she had one really good effort. Bonnie McKiernan made a great save in the first half. The two touches for the 1-2 or the 1-2-3, if you want to call it, for the goal for second goal, I thought was excellent. And I just thought everything she touched turned to gold at the weekend. I was very impressed with her. And I don't know if I've been able to say that this year. She's been good in patches, but what we expected when we heard she was coming back to the league, I think I finally saw that on Saturday.
Yeah, I think last year with her was sort of a bit of hit and miss. She'd have been niggles. This year she's had niggles as well. But when she's on, and she's quality. But it's more about how can Shells get her to be able to add a sustained period. The one thing for me from Shells' viewpoint is we still haven't really seen Roman McLaughlin, Alex Kavanagh, and Áine Clancy really start the game together and sort of play consistently together for a couple of games. That midfield has the potential to be absolutely frightening.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Let's take another look down the table. Maybe let's go down to the bottom of the table. Not the best weekend for DLR. 4-1 defeat for them down in Wexford. 2 penalties. And I suppose there's question marks over the penalties, but again, Badana probably unlucky not to keep one of them out, but some really, really good. The DLR goal itself, fantastic header from the edge of the box from Jess Gleeson to equalise what had been a phenomenal strike on the volley on the edge of the box. Badana gets a punch to a cross. I think it might have been a corner. Punch to that, and Lauren Kelly just attacks it on the edge of the box, beats the DLR player.
Jess Gleeson.
No, I'm talking about the
the first goal.
Lauren Kelly with a cracking volley. Probably, if Katie Lawlee doesn't step up, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but if she doesn't step up in injury time to win the game, I think it's hands down
Was this the Lauren Kelly show? The ball for the second goal as well for me to Kylie Murphy. I think Lauren Kelly is somebody who frustrates me because there is so much ability there. There's absolutely abundance of ability there. Didn't work at Shamrock Rovers. Didn't necessarily work the way she would have wanted at Peamount. When she was with DLR Waves, UCD Waves, it was sort of hadn't always worked. Her spell at Wexford hadn't always worked the first time, but she's got that much potential. I think Sean Byrne is sort of somebody who maybe is able to get that little bit over because I think she's been brilliant for them this year. And like her play on Saturday for me was just sublime, and like the ball for Kylie Murphy in particular for the go ahead goal after Waves equalised was superb. When you look at this game, it's more just a case of not necessarily experience ran out, but the second half, Wexford were able to control it. I still think DLR are doing some good things. Like I think the Jess Gleeson header though,
yeah, it's great.
It's unbelievable. Like edge of the box, it's
like I don't want to be facetious about it, but if any man did that in a men's game, from a ball in from the side and meet that with a head like that and stick in the back of the net with as much force and power as she did, we'd be talking about it. The papers have it all over the news.
I think that's bad. I think that's better than Lauren Kelly's goal. And for me, it's right up there with Katie Lawlee for the fact that she came and met that header just inside the 18-yard box and put it in the top corner. Like, because that's so hard to do to even hit the target from there. Never mind put it in the back of the net.
I'm purely. I don't disagree with you in principle, but in practice, given the situation, 0-0, 3-4 minutes into.
You're only saying that just giving your text message at 1-1.
I'm just saying. 2 goals for Kylie Murphy as well, of course. One for the penalty spot, and one a lovely little link up with Lauren Kelly on the edge of the box, and just managed to poke it home ahead of Badana coming out to close it down. But it was kind of old school Murphy, what we haven't seen maybe from her in that kind of the technical side of things in the last few years.
It's 2 goals this week, 2 goals last week. It's 4 goals in 2 games from her. It's the spark is still there. The sparkle is still there. if you're a fan of Wexford or you're from down that sort of region, enjoy her while you have her, because when Kylie switches it on, Kylie's brilliant, and our first goal was really nice. Penalty was well taken. Penalty was not well taken. It was hitting the corner, but I think Bandana probably should get to it.
Yeah, I probably don't disagree with that. And I think she does get to it. She just doesn't manage to get enough of a hand on it to keep it out. Bit like the Bonnie McKiernan one. Wexford, they're 6 points off the top. They do have a game extra played. Are they out of it, or has their little run of form kind of put them back maybe in that discussion?
No, they're out of it. Simple as that. I've said you already. And I'm sticking to it. I don't think anything. I don't think any team, bar Shells and Athlone, are going to beat each other. I just don't think so.
Well, you're a tough man. Sean Byrne has got your face on a dartboard in the dressing room.
I love Sean Byrne. I have so much time for Sean Byrne. He's an absolute gem of a person. But I'm sorry. Bill Trill can say it to me on Saturday if he wants in Talca Park, but I just don't see anyone beating Shells and Athlone in the league apart from each other.
Speaking of Phil Trill, let's take a look at Galway's win. 7-0 winners down in Waterford. Probably the biggest results of the season for them this year. What can we read?
It's Waterford's biggest loss.
Yeah, and Waterford have kind of gone off the boil a little bit. I was really impressed with them. I saw them early on in the season. I was very impressed with them. They've kind of gone a little bit off the boil. There's not a whole pile of change in the faces, but just, I don't know, is it, what can you put your finger on what's happened Waterford, or is it just maybe early concession of goals, heads drop a little bit, and then it's just open season, or is it just that little bit of an experience that at this level that was always inevitable that was going to happen at some point?
See, we've seen this sort of same thing with the likes of Sligo when they come in. You know, we sort of get a bit of an understanding of them, and then teams sort of just come up against them. And the problem about it is, and when you look at that Waterford team, yes, they have a couple of players who have a bit of experience, but like for me, Maeve Williams is the glue in that team. I think if Maeve Williams isn't in goal in that game, it could be even more. It could be even more. Unfortunately, it was just one of these days that a poorish Waterford side met a really, really up for Galway side, and I thought Galway were very, very good, and the fact that Galway kept going and didn't sort of sit back, it sort of showed to where Galway wanted to put a performance in. And I guess started with the first goal from Mooney, and then even the second goal from Costello. You could just see if your fullback is bombing on scoring your second goal, it's gonna be one of them days. And then 2-0 at half time, Waterford probably would have said, okay, we're under the cosh a bit here. We haven't really created an awful lot. And then the second half starts, you can see the goal after 3 minutes. Probably Ashley Meany's probably better of the two goals. The second goal when she curled the ball in, and then the floodgates nearly opened a little bit, and it was more of a case of how many are Galway going to score compared to sort of what can Waterford stop.
What are the highlights here, apart from the performance and the result, which I suppose is all you really want? But if you're looking at it in a bit more in depth, like 5 different players in the score sheet, clean sheet as well at the other end. Although Waterford haven't looked like scoring in a few games. I'm just double checking. Yeah, it's been a while since. I think they've only scored one in the last 6 games across all competitions. So that's which was that was
the Glentoran game in the All Ireland Cup.
4-1 defeat. Aaron O'Brien scored in that one. That was a great finish, to be fair to her, but it's been only 1 in 6 games. So Olivia Shannon scored 2, I think, in the win in Sligo. She hasn't really featured much of note in the last few weeks. Like, where are the goals going to come from Waterford?
It's hard to see, and then the fact that you haven't even mentioned that Amanda Smith missed the penalty, as well, which could have compounded it even more. Where the goals are going to come from Waterford, you wouldn't know. Danielle Burke. I don't know if it's an injury, but hasn't played for them in quite a while as well. Like, it's a really, really, really young side there from a Waterford viewpoint. Like, even you're talking in terms of older, like Mia Lenihan, Megan Carr, 22. Like, they don't have a lot of players who've got a lot of minutes in the League of Ireland. Probably the likes of Jess Lawler, and if you take out Maeve Williams, Jess Lawler's probably one of the more experienced players that they have. And at this level, experience is everything. And
I
we've
was
seen
very
that.
I was very impressed with Lauren Walsh when I saw her earlier in the year as well. But again, just not having the impact that she had in the early exchanges of the league.
No, I think it's just they've come up against some really, really good teams, and it's the same way when we talk about DLR Waves. They had a great result against DLR Waves, but they haven't sort of kicked on since that. And like when we talked about Waves sort of having a difficult season with their inexperienced players, it's the same going to go for Waterford. I just think there's a massive gap between the likes of them and above. We thought the gap was closing, but this season is sort of saying, is that gap closing? Is that gap really, really closing, or is it just a case of maybe there isn't the sort of high quality talent to go around all of these sort of clubs? Like we've seen some of them have individuals where they've got one or two really, really strong players, but then we look at, say, Shells, we look at say even Peamount, Rovers, Athlone. They've got really even Bohs have got some really, really strong players where if you compare the sort of squad depths to the likes of Waterford, Cork, DLR, Sligo, it's not there compared to the other sort of teams where they might have one or two of them. Like if you look at Sligo have Mirandavani, but they don't necessarily have the full depth behind them. And I think that's the problem with these sort of teams.
Yeah, there's a couple of other girls in Sligo maybe worth to mention, like Emma Hansbury, Kiva Flynn as well. Like they're and Bonnie McKernan, to be fair, they've impressed, but they just don't have that.
You get what I'm saying.
Yeah, they haven't got 17 or 18 that if they're missing 2 or 3, the replacements are of equal quality, and we're just not seeing that down through the
like
league.
If you look at that Galway bench,
it's
like that Galway bench from Saturday, right? You've got Rola Olasolo, Lindsay McKee, Trace Knievy, Amanda Smith, Kayla Bergen didn't even come off the bench.
Yeah, and Emily Fitzgerald scoring goals for fun. Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like that's a bench that any team would die for.
Yeah, absolutely. Quality. Yeah, because those girls, even the youngsters at the bottom of that list, in terms of Emily Fitzgerald and Annie McGill, they'd walk into a team in the bottom half of the division. Any other team in the division, they'd walk straight in, just because of that capability of finding the back of the net. I know McGill has got a couple of goals this season as well, maybe 1 or 2 goals this season off the bench for Galway. You mentioned we didn't really talk about Galway and Phil Trill's opinion. I started a question, but I got distracted. But what's Phil's most impressive takeaway from the weekend? Is it the score? Is it the number of scorers? Is it the quality of the goals, which were all pretty much top notch, except no offensive, but your 2 goals were pretty much tap ins from scrambles in the box. But you were there at the end of the ball to put the ball in. But is it seeing the number of players putting their hand up for inclusion and the quality from all over the pitch coming in with some phenomenal strikes?
It's players who got an opportunity stand up and be counted. I think that's the biggest thing that Phil Trill will take away from that. Like Trace Knievey's been a regular starter, and that sort of team didn't start. Like you've seen many of them players on the bench start games this season. More minutes for Lindsay McKee, another vital thing for me. I think realistically, getting to use subs and there's 5 subs and get more players, more minutes, more opportunities. And I think realistically, it's just. Like I don't think there's many things that Phil probably won't be happy about that performance.
Yeah, Emma Doherty scoring a goal for her first goal in 2 months, which we hadn't really talked about it, but it's a bit of a drought for her. Like, and she played nearly every minute of most of those games. She came off in the 75th, 78th, 81st minute. So she's played 5 full 90 minutes and 2 other full 90 minutes almost. So 7 games and a goal. Player of her quality, you'd expect to see her hit the net a bit more often than maybe she has this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to apologies if I get it wrong. I think it might have been Amanda Smith though who played the ball to her. The ball for her goal was superb. Where we put through Emma through on goal, and when she raced through, it was a calm, composed finish. Like as you say there, even at that Breifne, you say she hasn't scored in 2 months. Still 6 league goals. Yeah. Still 6 league goals, like you know what I mean, for a 21-year-old, like there's no reason why she can't hit double digits this year at least.
Yeah, and double digits in this league, and in the current environment in this league with the quality that is there, anyone hitting 10 goals in this game this year is decent, you know.
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Oh, go on.
What's the Golden Boot winner going to score this season?
Ooh, you've mentioned 18 for Kate Mooney all year. It's looking kind of like she's going to be in that ballpark.
I don't think 18 mightn't be enough. I don't think.
No, well, Kelly Brady is 10 and 10. She will go on to play 22 games this year. You would injuries aside. Kate Mooney has 10 and 10. Who do I think is going to hit more? Mackenzie Anthony has 8 and 9. Flacchini could hit goals, particularly against some of the weaker teams. I could see her racking up 3 or 4 goals across 2 or 3 games against some of the teams at the bottom of the table. So I think we'll see 2 players above 20. How far over 20, I don't quite know, but I think we'll see 2 over 20, and we'll see maybe 4 or 5 over 14 or 15. And I think that, for me, I'd be happy with that. We get 5 players over 15, because I think the Golden Boot last year was 12, if I'm not mistaken.
And it was 2 goals. It was 2 goals on the last day of the season.
Yeah, and I think before that, the year before that was
it 12 last year, or was it 11? Danish Share was the year before, but like, we haven't had a Golden Boot.
14.
We haven't had it up at 20 in a couple of years, in a good couple of years.
Which I think is good for the league, but I think we're going to see a lot of goals this year from a lot of players, not just 1 or 2. Now, there's a few players in there. I think Ashley Mooney, if she gets more game time, she's got 5 goals in 5 games, but she's only played 255 minutes. Do you know what I mean? So that's nearly 2 goals. That's nearly 2 goals a game for 90 minutes played. So if she gets time, she's a player who I just don't feel has really clicked in the league. A couple of injuries, a couple of niggles. Obviously back and forth to America in the last few seasons for college. But we're beginning to see the really good side of her. And no more than Lindsay McKee, I'm not going to write Galway's league title chances off yet. It's a long shot. But I think if they can get both Meany and McKee back on fully fit, I think you talk about the strength and depth. I think it pushes 1 or 2 girls out of the starting 11, but it really strengthens the overall squad. And I think Galway and Wexford, if things go well for them, but they'll both have to beat Athlone and Shelbourne to put themselves back in the hunt. But if that happens, I think the gates open up for Shamrock Rovers as well. Do Shamrock Rovers have the consistency? They struggle to beat Cork.
I was going to mention that you literally took one thing I'd written down on my notepad away from me in terms of Shamrock Rovers. The chances they create in games, they're creating so many chances, but they're struggling to put the ball in the net. So I'm going to read something out to you, because we've no league games this week, just because you're talking about Athlone and Wexford, right? Athlone and Wexford meet each other on the 12th of July. On the 19th of July, Athlone then play Galway.
Yeah.
They then play Treaty before they play Bows and then Shells. So you're talking Athlone are coming to a run of 5 games where, if they win all 5 of them games, I think they'll be champions.
There could also be a refixed midweek game with Shells thrown into the middle of that as well, depending on how cup games go, because that game obviously has to be refixed too. So it could be 5 or 6 games that will decide their league challenge title hopes, because
Athlone have a lot more of the bigger teams coming now. Whereas if you look at, say, Shelbourne finish, well, a lot of them. Shelbourne finish with Shamrock Rovers, Wexford, Treaty, Galway. They've Sligo and DLR mixed in there with Athlone. So they finish with a harder, whereas Athlone sort of have that next 5-6 game stretch. They've got a lot of that tough games where Shells finish with it. So even if it's a case of, it could be all on that Shells Athlone game on the 23rd.
From a personal point of view, I don't care how many teams are in the title hunt, as long as it's more than 1. As long as we get a race where there's 2 teams in it until the last or second last weekend of the season, I think we're going to be in for a really, really good year. And I'll
never forget. Was it 2020?
You're going to mention Peamount Galway again, eh?
Yeah, I'll never forget that, just because the actual
James still has nightmares about that. Will you leave the
poor man? It wasn't even that. It was more of a case of, for me, it was like, where am I going to go?
Yeah,
where am I going to go here? And like, even if you look at the year before, when Shells won the league, when Shells won the league down in Wexford, when we 3 teams the year after that, when we 3 teams started fighting for it, you'd got Shells, you got Athlone still in there, Wexford still in there, and it was like one of them where this is deadly. Yeah. Like, there's nothing worse than, and no disrespect to Athlone here, but there's nothing worse than Athlone win the league with 3 or 4 games to go, because Athlone against Galway last year, and people started turning around and say, Galway would have beaten them if they had that on the final day of the season. Athlone were sort of checked out in terms of the league on that last day of the season, that they knew cup final next week. No, let's try not get any niggles. Let's try not get any injuries. And that's not Athlone being disrespectful.
They also had the under 17 and under 19 league finals as well, which would have taken their attention in terms of girls who might have been on the fringes, would definitely push towards that under 19 and under 17 situation. So yeah, I completely agree with you, but I just want a title race. Let's talk about, there's 2 games left to get to. We're going to leave the best to last, in my opinion. So we're going to come to Dalymount Park second. But Shamrock Rovers and Cork City, that game, 2-1 win for Shamrock Rovers, goals from Áine O'Gorman and I think Joy Ralph. I don't have the notes here in front of me. But Cork could be reasonably happy with how they've performed. But at the same time, like you said, Shamrock Rovers should have put them to bed so early on in that game and just couldn't hit the back of the net. That's been Shamrock Rovers' problem. The more we talk about Peamount, that's why they're 5th in the league rather than 2nd or 3rd in the league, right?
That's why. And like when we look at, say, Shamrock Rovers, they've had some really big wins in some games where they've scored a lot of goals, but then there's other games where they're not putting the sort of teams away. And like even when you look at it, like when you've Cork on the cosh, you're sort of expecting, okay, can they get 3 or 4 early, put the game to bed. It's gone, so it's delivered. You have an easy afternoon. Áine O'Gorman won't score an easier goal after Lee Corbett's shot was initially blocked and it comes for. She won't score an easier goal on. You'll say, thank you very much. I'll have that all day. I thought it was a nice finish from Joy Ralph after the ball was played into her. It was coolly calm, slotted past the keeper, and then I'd like, for my notes, just say Shamrock Rovers. Literally word for word, I say Shamrock Rovers can be so frustrating to watch. They should be so much more clinical than they are. And we hear about Kylie talking, even listening to Kylie talking after the game. Kylie was sort of saying, like, the first question was asked to 2 he was happy that they got the results, but in terms of the aspects of the performance, and I think they've got the players there to do that. And if they want to be winning cups, or if they want to be sort of challenging or getting back up to higher in the league, they're going to have to do that on a more consistent basis. Like you look at, say, the Sligo Rovers game, they drew 0-0. They beat Bows. Like even the Lisburn game, where they should be beating some teams, and they're just not. And like that's why I said to you that defeat to Lisbon, the All Ireland Cup, could come back to bite them for the fact that instead of having a home quarter final, they're now on the road to Galway. And it's things where they have a lot more control over games, but they just can't seem to put it away and seal it that little bit better than they should do. Like some of the youngsters are superb, and the fact that Kylie is going with youngsters and playing a lot more youngsters, I think it's definitely working out for them. It's definitely in their favor in the sense of they're getting players experience, but they just need more quality as well.
But if you rewind to the first 3 games of the season, they beat Shells away, they drew at home to Athlone Town, and then they went and beat what we now know is a half-decent Treaty team when we look at it through the lens of Treaty over the last 4 or 5 years. A 4-1 win over Treaty is a really good result this season. So they had 7 points gathered against arguably 3 of the other top 5 or 6 teams in the league. And now here they sit 10 points behind Athlone, 9 points behind Shells. It's those drop points, again, at home to Sligo. With all due respect to Sligo, Shamrock Rovers should be putting them to the sword comfortably. And now we're seeing them paying the penalty of dropping those 2 points here, 2 points there.
So they lost 2 away games on the bounce after that run. Yeah, they lost away to Galway and away to Wexford. Both games. Sorry, they Wexford at home and Galway away. Both of them games conceded 3 goals. Yeah. Yes, they scored 2 goals. They scored 2, but they conceded 3. And I just think, like, if they could tighten up, like the nucleus of a good squad, I just think, and I said this at the start of the year that I thought they lacked that bit of experience. Ruchi Littlejohn didn't play at the weekend. I seen some people sort of asking questions, but when Ellen Malloy didn't play for Wexford either, because Ireland had travelled to Denver on Saturday, sort of they were missing that. They're also going to miss this weekend's FAI Cup games. Like, it's one of them where there's not a lot you can do from a Shamrock Rovers viewpoint if she's not available. But I just think, for me, Shamrock Rovers need to be doing that a little bit more. From a Cork viewpoint, it's another defeat, but showed some aspects of positivity in a thankfully no set piece goals this week for Incaller. I think that's one thing you'd be happy about, considering the amount of set play goals they've conceded. But like, realistically, can they do very much about the first goal? Probably not. But the fact that it takes the deflection and then it just falls to O'Gorman, probably not. Second goal, could they have stopped it in the build-up? Maybe. But like, even their own goal was poor defending from Shamrock Rovers. So I think realistically for Cork, there'll be some positives to take out of it, but it's another defeat for them.
You talked about a couple of changes in the Shamrock Rovers squad in terms of Rúis Littlejohn being away with the Ireland team. There was 2 changes in the game that surprised me a little bit. Both goalkeepers surprised my selection. Claude Fitzgerald for Cork as Una Foyle dropped to the bench, and Summer Lawless came in for Katie Keane, who was on the bench as well. Let's talk about the Una Foyle one, because Cork obviously been in a bad run of form. I've been impressed with her this year. Surprised to see her not in the starting 11.
Considering we talked about it a week before, some of the saves she'd made against Galway and some of the things she'd done against Galway. Like when we look back on it, and we sort of had to debate ourselves about the 2 long-range goals. Probably can't do anything about them with the wind and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a bit of a surprise, but I like young Claude Fitzgerald. I think she's a smashing young goalkeeper. Is it a change I would have made? Probably not.
Yeah, interesting. The other one, rumors around maybe Katie Keane's future in the league, but that's another story. Nothing's been announced yet, but we'll have to see where that ends up in the coming weeks. Summer Lawless, good to see her get an opportunity though, because she's been a keeper that's impressed me over the last few seasons, and she hasn't really found a home in the league as yet.
No, I think when she left Bows that time, probably a little bit surprised considering I knew the work she was doing in the background with Patre, sort of in terms of the improvements that she was making. Hasn't really worked out for her. I can't imagine if Katie Keane moves on that Rovers will probably look to bring in another goalkeeper, someone with a bit more experience. Summer probably might get an opportunity. She might get another opportunity this week to sort of, if that's the case, to stake her claim. But it'll be interesting to see what Kylie does. I think from a Shamrock Rovers viewpoint, I think the one they let get away is it could come back to bite them in the sense of I think they let Jane Merrin go that time, and probably should never let Jane Merrin go at that stage. And
is that fair to say on Summer Lawless? Because let's be honest, she's got dozens of underage caps. She's been around the league at senior level for a couple of seasons. She made her debut for Peamount back in 22. So it's not like she's inexperienced.
But the thing for me is if Collie made the decision at the start of the year that he's bringing in another goalkeeper, that's to me where it nearly tells me that he's made that decision. Should Summer Lawless get an opportunity to show what she's capable? Absolutely. Would you say if Summer Lawless was going to be in goal for Shamrock Rovers that you'd have major concerns that you'd have your heart in your mouth moments? No, she's more than capable of 100%. But I think when Collie makes the decision at the start of the year when Amanda's going that he's bringing in another goalkeeper, I think that tells us that where he's thinking, and that's why I think the Shamrock Rovers could potentially go and get another goalkeeper if it is the case with Katie. But like I think Summer Lawless, you're right, underage caps has been very well. She's come on an awful lot over the last number of years, and you'd like to see her playing a bit more. She played she started a couple of the All Ireland Cup games as well. Like she's starting to get more and more minutes for Shamrock Rovers, and like she's sort of a player that maybe we thought wouldn't be at the club anymore, considering what happened last year when they announced she'd left, and then she came back. I'd like to see, hopefully,
I think
give her loyalty.
Yeah, for me, I think as someone who spent most of my footballing career as a substitute keeper, I've always got a bit of sympathy for the person in that role.
It's
and I look
the hardest job.
I look around the league and I see so many players, and we know the names. Like you're looking down at Abigail Ronayne down in Galway, sitting on the bench for them. You've got Summer here. You've got others. Jane Merrin's floating around as well. The league. Do you mean like there's so many different players have been in that? Amber Hardy. Who have come in, had a little flash of brilliance, and then sitting on the bench, and they don't get the same opportunity as outfield players. So I always get a bit conscious when somebody's there. Let's go to Dalymount. Last game of last weekend, and it was a pretty decent game, all told. Entertaining the whole way through, intense, the whole shebang. Bit of a red card. I thought Sarah Power was very unlucky to get sent off. Was it yellow cards?
It is. It's a second yellow. It's a second yellow.
Two yellows, but I just felt the game didn't deserve a red card, and I don't think she deserved a red card.
I don't think it had an impact on the winner. I don't think. And if I'm Alban Heisen, when I look back at this game, I am probably extremely frustrated because the amount of chances that Bows had early in that game. Yeah. They when Ava Brennan gives them the lead. there's more efforts than after, where I thought probably, and I said I'd say this to you, I thought they should have had a penalty from the tackle from Madeline Robbins on the just inside the box that wasn't given, and then there was a save, a shot and a save.
Hannah O'Brien scored in injury time herself to wrap it up.
Yeah, absolutely. But even Alana McAvoy just before half time when she's through on goal, probably has to find the net there. Like, if you're talking sides that are going to win leagues or want to win leagues, them sort of things have to be going. Like, I thought the two sides were very evenly matched. I thought it was a really, really, really enjoyable game. I felt sorry for Lisa Murphy with the own goal. When I went, like, it's one of them that it happens. But yeah, I thought it was a really, really enjoyable game. I was thinking to myself, right, finishes 1-1. Both managers will be okay about it, walk away, and then the early text message comes in. I've been really impressed with Katie Lawlee, and then boom, 60 seconds later.
But she has impressed me, and I genuinely, like, I meant everything I said in the text. The bit of Nostradamus was unexpected, but I just thought she had been really solid all day on Saturday, but she has been really solid all season. And I think we've gone hyper about Bella Flaccini at times. We've been really impressed with Madison McGann. I think Katie Lawlee is every bit as important to that side. And you can throw Madeline Robbins in there. You can throw in Lisa Toomey. I've really liked the left back, Ikeza. I just feel the Treaty have got whatever their scouting network, and I reckon it's a lot to do with the contact book of their chairperson and their CEO, Ciara McCormack, has pulled in a lot of players from a lot of different places, and they just seem to have a good vibe. I really like some of the social media stuff that they're doing that shows the players, and you kind of feel like you know what's going on in Treaty more than maybe other clubs. And I think that's important in terms of the girls feeling like they belong to something, and it's showing in the performances. And I think when you look at Treaty through the lens of where Treaty have been over the last half a decade, I think they've definitely been the standout of the season for me in terms of what they've been doing. And I'm looking forward to watching them as they kind of grow into that in the second half of the season. Can they keep all the girls? Will they keep them through the off season and through I don't mean the off season, I mean the transfer window? Depends on what their deals are, but I reckon with the talk that's come out of Treaty, they'll be pretty much nailed down. But if they're not, I wouldn't be surprised to see some clubs sniffing around some of the foreign imports going, we might take a look at her, because she could change us into title win. And it could be 4 or 5 players that fit that mold. And I think that's the next big challenge for Treaty, is can they show these players that they can stay at Treaty and potentially challenge to win stuff in the next 2 to 3 seasons.
I'm gonna flip this on its head. If you offered Treaty United that 2 years ago, struggling to get players in, struggling for results, that they're now going to have to convince players to stay because they would have bit your hand off. They were looking at players who were making.
They couldn't even get girls from Limerick to play for them. So, like,
you're looking at players from in that region, the likes of your Kayla Bergens, Michaela Lawrence's, Nicole Nix's, all from within the sort of catchment that area that Limerick should be trying to.
Jenna Slattery, you can keep going, like the Gillian Keenan. The list goes on. Like, the list goes on. It's a full starting 11, effectively.
Yeah.
And Treaty could not get them for love nor money to even entertain the idea of joining Treaty. I made a joke to someone, a player in the league, what was then a top team. I don't identify the person, but who was challenging for the league in the last 6 or 7 years. And I made a joke. They'd moved to Treaty, or they moved to Limerick for something temporarily. And I says, "Oh, you could join Treaty." And her reaction, to be fair, was fairly neutral. Her dad's reaction was not. He just started he burst himself laughing. And I don't think you get that reaction anymore. I think you get the maybe. Do you know what I mean? I think they've put themselves in that conversation.
Okay, what's available?
Yeah, I think it's a very different conversation now. And you don't get
absolutely. And that's the thing, is they now have to have these different conversations instead of having the conversation of, I can't get anybody through the door. Now we're talking about, can we keep them? What can we do to make sure we keep them? And that's the best part. That's the part of it that I like, and that's the part of it that we sort of thought, would we ever see that? And the thing about it is, it's not just the foreign imports that they have to worry about. Can we keep? It's the homegrown players that they're growing. And as you said last week, like, I think a lot of these younger players, there'll be some serious loyalty. I think there'll be some loyalty from some of these players who've got an opportunity when they were young, and like I wouldn't be surprised to see Treaty continue to grow off the back of this year.
And I think we will see a stage. It might be another year or two, where we see some of those players who might be into their early 20s kind of go, why am I driving to Cork, to Galway, to Dublin to play games? And we know who I'm talking about. The whole league I'm talking about. Like, there's a really good option here on my doorstep, and I think that's putting the women on an equal footing with the men. And I know they get grief locally for that, but I think ultimately that's going to be the deciding factor and why Treaty will be around at this level at a minimum in 5 or 6 years' time, when some others may have dropped off, or we might see them, like, for example, DLR, when they were UCD, were challenging for titles. Do you know what I mean? Now we talk about where they are. So that's the cycle. We've seen it before. Athlone 3 years ago, bottom of the league. Now they're challenging, won the title. So we're going to do that. Let's jump on, because we are running out of time. Let's talk about Champions League first. The draw took place during the week. Athlone Town, they will play Cardiff at home in Athlone in the first round, and then a couple of days later they will play, name escapes me now because I didn't write it down, but they play the Croatian champions from Zagreb, and again that game will be held in Athlone.
The big if, they have to win the first game to get the second game.
Yeah, and also they have to win the second game to get to a third game. So the whole competition has changed slightly. We're now mirroring the men's competition. There'll be a one league with 18 teams in it. The top 12 will go into effectively the last knockout stages. 1 to 4 into the quarterfinals. 5 to 12 will play off for the opportunity to get into that quarterfinal spot. Now, that's pie in the sky stuff. That is absolute best case scenario for any Irish team to get to that stage. To get to that stage, the process has changed. It used to be you win your group of 4 and then you have a playoff. Now you win your group of 4, you go into a second group of 4, and then you have a 2-leg playoff, and then you're in the Champions League proper. So effectively you have to get through, and you have to win the first 4 games to get to the 2-leg playoff. So it's a really tall order. The first round is actually winnable. Both games are winnable.
Even for the fact that there's like a Champions path and a league path for like teams who finish second. So like for the likes of Athlone, if Athlone got through the first phase, they're going to be playing teams in the Champions path who've won their league. It's not even as if they're going to be playing teams who maybe finish second in a different league that have more spots. And it's just the way it works out.
It's very heavily weighted. Yeah, it's heavily weighted against an Irish team ever reaching the Champions League knockout stages. But of course, as we all know, hopefully, if you haven't been living under a rock, there is a new competition for clubs in Europe, women's clubs in Europe, and that unfortunately excludes Irish teams unless you qualify via the Champions path in the Champions League. So let me explain that for a minute. It is straight knockout, 32 teams taking part across the entire competition. And as I understand it, there's a load of teams that qualify automatically by virtue of finishing maybe second in their own league competition. That is for the associations ranked from 1 to 24. They get a team in by right. The rest come from the Champions League. So for Ireland to qualify for that, because we currently sit, I think, 34th or 35th on the table, maybe 36th, we've a score of 0.8. The 24th team have a score of 0.10, so it's a win or two in the Champions League over a 5-year period away from qualification. It's not realistic in the short term. I'll be straight up with you. Although this year could change that. So I'm confusing myself as we already speak. But Athlone need to win 2 games to get to round 2, and that again is a 4-team division. They play a semi-final. They win that to go to the final. If they win that, they're in the playoff round. The complication comes if they lose the playoff final, they're out of Europe. End of story. If they lose the semi-final and then win the 3rd and 4th place playoff, they go into the Europa League. So if they get 3 wins in a row and lose, they're out. If they get 2 wins, a loss, and a win, they go into the knockout stages of the Europa Cup. So it's all very confusing. It's all very convoluted.
Mind-boggling.
Essentially, to have any hope of being in anything, Athlone have to beat both those teams. And Aaron, I think both those teams are quite winnable. The standard in Wales, not as good as the standard here in the Republic.
I'd be extremely disappointed if we don't win the first one.
Yeah, 100%. But the Croatian side, they're from Zagreb. They're a newish side, first time in Europe. They haven't finished in the top 5 in the domestic league before last season. So they're brand new to this. We're so used to seeing Osijek. They've come out of that division. They knocked Peamount out knocked Shells out last year. They definitely ended one of the teams. Who was in the Champions League last year? Was it
Peamount?
Yeah, so Peamount got knocked out by Osijek, who were Croatian, but it happened in Croatia. Funny enough, they're also the side that I coached against back in 2010. Very different side, but they'd be quite similar in terms of their outlook. St. Francis beat them in 2011, 2010, 2011. I can't remember what year.
Even in terms of the Champions League, like the likes of your English teams then come in, your big teams come in even later now, because the fact that like the second round playoff, you're talking Rangers aren't even in the second round playoff.
No,
because how well Glasgow City have done over the recent years, that they would just come into the third round playoff, to the final playoff. Like even there's a team who we would have seen in recent years in Gentry Universities in the second pot, but it's complicated. But the big thing is Athlone have a home draw for the first two.
One advantage is now in the future, the first round games, both of them are winnable. We've seen situations where there's been one absolute giant dropped in from a Spain or Russia into a group, and it's affected all up. Arsenal played at this stage 2 years ago, got knocked out, I think, by Paris, if memory serves.
Arsenal come in very early last year as well.
Yeah, but they got knocked out of it at this stage 2 years ago, and then went on to win the Champions League last year. So I'm not saying Athlone are going to do that.
Even what was it? Shells 2 years ago had Glasgow in their group, who now the Scottish champions don't even come in until the third round.
Yeah, and
like it's a big difference.
Yeah, and Peamount play them as well in the COVID year in 2020, I think. So
I'm still convinced if Stephanie Zamber played that game, Peamount could have won that game.
Yeah, I know. COVID restrictions were a nightmare at that time. But anyway, when we look at the situation from now on, we don't have that situation. There's no association above, I think it's 24 in that draw anymore. So it means that all the teams, it might be slightly higher, but it's not significantly higher. All those teams are now beatable. For any Irish team that qualifies for the Champions League. So we could start seeing Irish teams having 3-4 games in the Champions League every single season. It gives you more experience. It gives you more opportunity, brings in a bit more eyeballs as well in terms of opportunities to promote the teams and promote the league. So I think it's positive. I think it's really, really positive going forward. Expectations? Your thoughts on where Athlone can finish?
Expect them to win both games.
Yeah, I think I would.
Then it's a look at the draw.
Yeah, 100%. And it depends on who you get in the next stage. There's some really heavy hitters in that next stage. So not saying it couldn't be possible. I actually think what will be a great result for Athlone and very possible is actually getting through to the first round and maybe sneaking into that third spot, winning the playoff and getting into the Europa Cup home and away legs. I think that would be a great step for an Irish team. You have a chance of winning some games in that competition as well. Build up that coefficient and get yourself closer to 20.
Cliftonville come in the next rounds.
Yeah, we're not that far off. We're really not that far off in terms of being seeded. Anyway, last thing before we leave, of course, Ireland faced the USA at the weekend. 2 games, Friday morning, the very early hours of Friday morning, Thursday American time, at 2 a.m. kickoff there in Denver in Dick's Sporting Goods Park, home of Colorado Rapids. Going to give you a quick one for you. What famous WNL player is now?
Ruth Fahey.
Ah, good man. You bet me to it. Yeah. I suppose we had a long conversation with her at the Cup final a couple of years ago when she sat in beside us. But yeah, so Ruth Fahey is one of the vice presidents, I think, over there in Colorado Rapids at the moment. It's a very Irish-friendly situation. Who's actually their COO or their CEO over there at the moment? I'll give you a clue. He's got FBI roots. I'm going to have to Google the name myself. I know who he is, but I just can't remember his surname.
No idea.
It's Porrick, Colorado. It's Porrick Smith. He's 11 years the president of Colorado Rapids, formerly of the FAI. Not quite sure what his role was in the FAI, but I know he was really high up there.
So if we talk about these games, do
they matter? First thing?
No, absolutely not. And these games are already put in place before Carla Ward even got the Ireland job. Timing is not great.
Let's be honest, this is a financial thing for the FAI in terms of the Irish will bring an audience to a game. It's about building an audience for the women's games. Like, I know there's probably 20,000 Irish people in Denver. Most of them will probably make their way to this game at the weekend. Like, that's the reality of this. Ireland get their expenses paid to go play against top quality opposition, and then we do get that top quality opposition as well. Like, there's also the on-field benefits, but it's very much a commercial arrangement with America, and it suits both sides from a commercial point of view.
Yeah, I was listening to Carla Ward's media briefing on Monday, and she was started talking about that she wants to have the opportunity to give some players a run. You know, look, the fact that RT reporting that Denise O'Sullivan and Megan Campbell are going to be out of the game on Friday, which means that there's a potential position. There's even more options opening up in defence and in midfield. I would love to see Erin Healy get a run in these games. I'd love to see what she's about in these sort of games. I'd love to see Hayley Nolan get an opportunity at centre back as well. I don't think result doesn't matter. For me, it's more time with players in the squad as we build up to the games in October. That's, for me, is more important than results. Then again, you don't really want to go out and get beaten off the park. So keep it respectable and give players an opportunity, and I'll be happy. But don't forget, Breifne, before you can't end the show on Ireland stuff over these two games, because you'd be very remiss if we didn't mention your favourite cup competition that starts this weekend.
Okay.
The FAI Cup.
Yes, the FAI Cup does start this weekend. Why isn't my favourite cup competition? I'm worried about what I've said now.
I don't know. Your favourite cup competition.
Just to get to the final and losing it count as being a favourite cup competition. I still heard it, and it's nearly 20 years. Let it go.
We're guaranteed one non-league team.
Yes, Fern. No, who?
Newbridge and Whitehall play on Friday evening at 8:00.
Yeah,
I would love to get to that. There is a outside chance I might get to it, but it's not a guarantee. I really have my eye on Saturday. I'm not going to lie. The clash between Shells and Galway for me is the big one.
Yeah, these are the fixtures, of course. Let me just make them a bit smaller on screen there. You've got Cork City against Peamount on Saturday evening. These are in reverse chronological order. So we start at the bottom, actually. Newbridge against Whitehall at 8 p.m, as you mentioned. Then 3 o'clock on the afternoon on Saturday, Sligo Rovers and DLR Waves, while Treaty United host Ferns United. It'll be interesting to see how Ferns get on against Treaty in that. I think they won the Leinster Junior Cup last year. So that'll be a big achievement for them. Shells and Galway, that's the big tie of the round. They play at 4 o'clock in Talca Park. Shamrock Rovers at 5 against Waterford. But Athlone Town, the holders host Terranure Rangers, the Women's Amateur Cup champions. So interesting to see how that's going to go, because I know we've talked a lot about league versus non-league in the last few seasons, and interesting to see what the game will be like there. Wexford and Bows with that Cork City Peamount game wrapping up the entire first round draw there. So
I have a big fear over that game on Saturday.
The Shells Galway game or the Athlone
Terranure, because if Cork City put 5 past that, put 5 past Terranure. Sligo, I think they put 5 or 6 past them last year in the cup.
Yeah,
they're going in against the league champions. Like, I just think if the Athlone sides turn up that are capable of turning up, they could score more than 10 goals against Terranure, and I it's not good for the cup.
The gap is huge.
The gap is so big, and like, it's only getting bigger. And the problem with that is, with the gap getting bigger, I think the likes of the FAI, all the local leagues, they need to work together to see how they can do something to give a bit of a bridge, because the gap is just getting bigger and bigger every year, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Well, listen, that's all we have time for today. We'll be back with a full review of all of those games next week. Aaron, thanks as always. We'll chat to you again next week.